course, the question I most often get asked when I do interviews is, so how do you lose weight? If what I'm saying to people is ignore all the advice that you've been told to date, do not count calories, do not try and eat less, do not follow any kind of restriction diet whatsoever, they say to me, well, what do people do to lose weight? When you come on to phase 2, you'll realise that there are 3 very, very simple rules to follow for the rest of your life to achieve and maintain your natural weight. The first rule is you must not eat processed foods. From here on in, on the Harcombe diet, you only want to eat real food. So you will be eating meat, fish, eggs, vegetables, dairy products, cheese, milk, salads, whole grains like brown rice, brown pasta, baked potatoes, brown bread. You won't be eating things that come in a package. You won't be eating cakes or biscuits or sweets or sugary cereals. You won't be eating things that are heavily packaged, heavily sugared and full of trans fats and man-made things that have started to create the obesity epidemic that we've seen over the last 30 years. So rule 1, you will only eat real food. Rule 1, you will only eat real food. The second rule is that you won't be mixing fats and carbohydrates. There's a separate VT, just to remind you the difference between a fat and carbohydrate. Many people know it like the back of their hand, so I won't go into it now. The easiest rule of thumb is that a fat is anything with a face or anything that comes from something with a face. So your fats are meat, fish, eggs, cheese, dairy products and so on. Anything else is a carbohydrate. Forget protein. Protein is in everything from lettuce to bread to meat. Prepared foods, protein is in everything, so just forget protein for now. What you want to worry about are fats and carbohydrates. From here on in, you are going to separate those 2 food groups like there's no tomorrow. I'll tell you quickly why. It's all about how the body uses food. As soon as your body sees a carbohydrate, it says, thank you very much, I'm going to use that for energy straight away, and I'm going to store any fat for later on. The double whammy is, your body can only store fat if you've got a substance called insulin present. Your body only has insulin present if you've just eaten a carbohydrate. So not only when you eat a carbohydrate and a fat at the same time does your body want to store the fat, it can store the fat because you've just eaten the very thing to give the substance insulin that enables the fat to be stored. So you don't want to eat those 2 things at the same time. Eat a cheese sandwich, the body says thank you very much for the bread, I'm now going to store the cheese and the butter, which are the fats that you've just consumed. We don't want fat to be stored from here on in, so we're going to end that. Rule 3, I've got other VTs that you can watch on the 3 medical conditions that cause insatiable food cravings. So rule 3 is that you now need to avoid the foods that together we will identify as the problem foods for you. Please do look up my separate VTs on candida, food intolerance and hyperglycemia, because those are the conditions with which you need to become very familiar. They are so common, they are so unbelievably common that it absolutely baffles me why people before me haven't made the connection of how dieting leads to those 3 conditions and how those 3 conditions cause insatiable food cravings.